recording. We have a special, Joy is going to lead us in a story, Mo'olelo, about Hawai'iloa, right, Joy?
Yes, well, I'm going to talk story, and I'm hoping that kind of, Uncle Brad will hop in whenever I, put a lot of Alaska photos in. I kind of focused a little bit more on the past versus the future, since many of you have been part of that, and there's different things, different resources. I mean, we have so many photos of all the new things, so the PowerPoint that I put together is a little bit more focused on the past. Even more so too, like I kind of focus, since especially because we have Uncle Brad, so I focus more, a lot of the photos are on Alaska. There is, I also want to honor Uncle Jerry as well, because he, is the one that rebuilt Hawai'iloa. So what I was going to do was I was just going to send out the link to Na Lo'ea after, because I was going to put different clips in, but I figured it's such a special video, I'll just send you all the link so that you guys can watch that later at your own convenience, because there's some really beautiful footage that, I think that we would all love for you guys to see. But yeah, so I guess we can go ahead and get started. Ben, feel free to chime in anytime.
Joy, just a second before, we should do a pule just to start.
Okay.
And I'd love to have a volunteer. Also, I talked briefly to Billy Richards, and he said that Hawai'iloa is a humongous story, and depending on how this all goes, he's open to some point telling about the origins, but probably not today. It's a long, long story involving many, many people. But anyway, before we begin with that, Joy, does anybody want to volunteer, except Steve, because he did it last week, to do a pule to open us up? I know there's lots of people excited about the possibility.
Come on, you guys.
What's the worst that can happen? And Eliahi, I was looking for the thing. If you could put that up again, that would be awesome. Just share the screen, and then anybody can say it. But we should start with a pule. I can pick somebody. I think Tamika would be really good at it. Also, she doesn't have her mic on, her mic muted.
Mute.
Oh, now she's muted. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're okay?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, okay, go ahead and lead us through.
Pule ho mai kai. Au hea ena makau karani. E mariu mai nei a reo pule. He reo haa. A he reo ho mai kai no hoi. Makai a mako pakana. A pukai ke a marama.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right, Joy, the floor is yours. Wait, there she is. Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Let me know. Sometimes I have some issues with my sound, so just let me know if at any time if I end up going out. Okay. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen. Sorry, you gotta bear with me with the Zoom. We're not really allowed to use Zoom at work. So this is one that I'm a little bit more not familiar with. So let me.
Nice background picture.
Thank you. Okay. I have host disabled participant screen sharing. It's giving me an error. Can you guys hear me?
I just made you the host, Joy, so that should work it. You should be able to do it now.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, let me know when if you guys can see my screen.
It's up.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so thanks everyone. This is all just really informal. I just kind of threw this together, just some slides and some photos to kind of have a visual for the mo'olelo. So again, this is the story of Hawai'iloa, our precious wa'a. I know that some people get a little bit confused. So Hawai'iloa is actually under the care of, hello?
Sorry.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, somebody else needed to mute themselves.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so I just wanted to share, just to clarify for those of you who aren't really familiar, but Hawai'iloa is actually under the care of the Friends of Hokulea and Hawai'iloa. We are a nonprofit 501c3, and we are a nonprofit for perpetuating traditional Hawaiian canoe building traditions, but for all people. Okay, so although the canoe was obviously part of PVS's vision, it was Uncle Nainoa that actually went to Uncle Rido Bowman Jr., who is the founder of our organization. So he was the master canoe builder for Hawai'iloa. Okay, so that's why you see the Friends logo here at the top. Okay, and it's technically owned by the Bishop Museum, but is leased to the Friends. Okay, so once upon a time, you know, as you know, Hokulea was built, and Hokulea was more so built to prove that they could navigate from point A to point B. So a lot of the scientists said, okay, that's great and everything. However, there's no way that they could have built traditional canoes from traditional materials. So the Native Hawaiian Culture Arts and the Native Hawaiian Culture and Arts program set out to build a canoe made out of mostly natural materials. So if you take a look at this here, this was actually the initial schematic, you know, the blueprints for when they first came up with the project. And then Uncle Brad, please feel free to hop in at any time and correct me and just jump in, please, okay? I was actually gonna try to make you do the whole, was gonna actually have you do the whole thing, but I figure I'll just have you do all the Alaska stuff. But again, just hop in at any time.
Okay, will do.
Okay, so as we mentioned, they wanted to build the canoe with mostly traditional materials. So they set out on a search for koa logs. They went and they searched in the late, like the late 80s and the early 90s. So here you could see, here's like one photo, there's Uncle Nainoa, and I believe that's Shorty and Clay Bertelman. So they are on Mokuokeave looking for koa, and I believe this was in 1990. You know, they searched, and they found, you know, they found a log, it was rotted out, they found another log, but it was so far up the mauna that in order to bring it down the mountain, they would have had to clear so much land, you know. So as you know, some of you may or may not know that Uncle Billy was in the military. So he actually reached out to see if they would be able to airlift it, but what would have happened is once they found out how far up the mauna it was, they would have had to lift, clear land, and drop, lift, clear land, and drop. So they would have had to clear so much land and wouldn't necessarily be sustainable, you know, to destroy a lot of the forest in order to bring one log down. So they decided not to go that route. You know, they kept searching and they kept searching, but they weren't able to find anything. So the search technically brought them to Alaska and to technically to Sea Alaska Corporation. So there was a few people who were involved. You know, you have, you know, John Dominus was obviously involved, giving Nainoa different information. There was, here we have Byron Malott. So with Byron Malott, he was, he had just recently passed away, but at the time he was in charge of Sea Alaska, as well as, sorry, Uncle Brad, I'm spacing out on, is it Uncle Judd? I'm sorry.
Judson Brown, yes.
Judson Brown, there you go, Judson Brown. So they had heard about Uncle Nainoa's, you know, dilemma that they wanted to build the canoe, but they couldn't find logs. So they had said, hey, we have many trees here, you know, you can have some of our trees. You know, we have many forests. And, you know, he was very grateful for the offer, but at the time he did not feel that the logs should come from Alaska. He was really set on looking for koa logs. So they decided to continue the search, and I believe that they had given themselves a time limit. Now, during this time frame, they talk about, there's a specific story that they talk about where it was Nainoa and it was Uncle Tava, and they were in the forest together. And there's this story, I think that you could even read about it somewhere in the archives, where they were both leaving the forest and they were so disappointed, like they didn't really walk together. They were in silence, and it was a big eye-opener about the state of the native forests, that the forest could no longer provide the resources needed to build Va'a. A lot of people think about voyaging, and I think that they look more so at being at sea and sailing, but your voyage pretty much starts with like the canoe builder having a dream about a tree and carving that tree. So you need the resources from land. So this was a big eye-opener. So it was a really sad time to see. They say that koa back in the day was so plentiful that people were obviously cutting it down for multiple reasons. I remember some people even shared that at some point there was so much they actually even cut it down as firewood. Again, the story brought them to Alaska. Okay, so with that being said, after they had reached their time frame, and I know that I believe it was John Dominus that kind of, helped Nainoa to realize that although he really wanted the trees to be koa, that there was great importance in completing this project, even if it meant that the logs had to come from Alaska. So they set out to look for logs, and I think I'm gonna pass this over to Uncle Brad because Uncle Brad, this is a personal friend of Uncle Brad, so I'm gonna have him talk about the forestry manager, Uncle Ernie Hillman, who was the man that found our logs. So Uncle, if you don't mind if I pass this over to you.
Okay, is my sound okay? Can everybody hear? Right on. Okay, so yeah, this is Ernie Hillman. He was the forest manager for Sea Alaska at the time that the search was going on. And he did search through some of their properties, spent some time to do it, and finally found trees large enough. And they were on the island of Shelikof, which basically was kind of interesting because the island itself is Haida land. He is a Tlingit, and the Tlingits basically, though, own the resources of that island. And so there was a little dilemma at the beginning because the Tlingits and the Haidas had not been talking to each other for quite a while. A lot of pilikia between the two nations. And this project, again, the building of Hawai'iloa, brought the two together. So it really had a huge impact because it was the first time in years and years and years that the two sat down at a table and actually were joined by the Tsimshian and basically talked. And it was decided that permission would be given by Haida as well as the Tlingit to use the trees that had been picked. So Ernie was the one that actually found them, and eventually, of course, they had a huge contingent that went, a Hawaiian contingent that went up for the cutting, and they did ceremonies in both Tlingit as well as in Hawaiian at the actual felling of the trees. And Ernie was the one that also, during the 95 voyage, when we took Hawai'iloa back up into its home and into the Alaskan waters, that he was the one who led us. Started with us in, let me think now, I think it was in Ketchikan. And then ended with us, took us all the way up through to the end of the voyage.
Went up to Alaska.
Yeah. But up at the end of the voyage up through to Juneau. And that's where the last stop was.
Right.
Yeah. So, Ernie was...
He was already on. Yeah, so what time are you supposed to come? 8.
Oh, that's right.
Bullet, let's go.
That's right.
Fucking guys are bad.
So yeah, he basically though was one. He knew everybody. He actually was a judge at one time for the Tlinkits, and he knew everybody. So every village that we went to, every one of the Tlingit villages, a Haida village, he knew everyone. And so great resource and great guy. In fact, he and his wife Lillian, very much into their culture, and they just they took care of us immensely. Okay, when we were up in the Alaska area. So does that help a little bit, Joy?
No, that definitely does. Thank you for sharing, Uncle. Okay, so once the trees were felled, you know, they obviously were brought back here to Honolulu, and that is where Uncle Rido Bowman Jr. comes into the picture. He was contacted by Nainoa Thompson to build the canoe. So I believe that what they say is that the hulls were technically designed by Dick Rhodes, Rudy, and Barry Choi. And then Nainoa, Uncle Rido, and then Uncle Wally Froseth, Ben's Tutukane, actually designed the other parts of the canoe. Okay, so here you'll see Uncle Rido Bowman Sr., Uncle Rido Bowman Jr., as well as Uncle Wally. Okay. So here are a few more photos from the building of Hawai'iloa. You can see the actual logs here that are at the actual Halewa'a at Bishop Museum. I know Uncle Billy always tells the story of when he was there when Uncle Rido actually took the first cut, and he says that, you know, he's pretty sure that Uncle Rido made the chainsaw himself. He said it was huge, and he says he's standing on top of the log. He takes the first cut, and Uncle Billy always says how he just thought, wow, this guy must be the bravest man in the world right now. So I love hearing that story, you know, just to take on the task, you know, a task like that had not been, you know, that no one has taken on for so long, just the kuleana of that. So I'm really grateful for what Uncle Rido Bowman Jr. and Sr. did.
Hey, Joy, Steve here.
Yes.
Was anybody up there when they actually brought the trees, cut the trees down in the forest?
Yeah,
was that-
definitely. There was, like Uncle Brad mentioned, there was actually a contingency that went. So there's actually a whole documentary. I actually thought about putting footage in as well. But what I was going to do was I was going to include that link as well, because I believe you could watch it on YouTube. And
Okay.
it's pretty cool because when you actually see the trees, and then you could hear the thump of when, you know, of when they actually fell. So I didn't really have time to kind of go through to take screenshots because it was I couldn't really find actual photos of that. I was having some technical problems with my personal laptop, so I kind of had to do this on my work laptop, so I was kind of limited with some of the photos. But I
as
was
long as we can
planning
just
on
post,
sending that link.
we can just
Yeah,
post them
so
up.
it's a
We can
really
just post them
beautiful
up to our
film.
folder. Okay, great.
Yeah, we can do that as well.
Mahalo.
Yeah, of course. Here's a few more photos here. You can see Nainoa with Rido. You can see Uncle Palanivan. You know, it's pretty cool because when we do different events at Hawai'iloa, or, you know, just the different events that we've had, and if we take part in them, and we're also doing tours, you'd be amazed at how many people come and they say, hey, Tita, I went and build that right there, or I did that, or I helped build that, or I sanded that. So it's what's really special about our canoe is just all the hands that put their mana into the canoe to build it. You know, part of why the organization is called the Friends of Hokulea and Hawai'iloa is because Uncle Rido said that no matter what they're doing, he always wanted everyone to remember that Hokulea and Hawai'iloa come first. Because even Uncle Billy always says, I hate the name. I wanted them to change the name. But Uncle Rido said they couldn't change the name because they always wanted to stress that although they build many va'a, that the main priorities were Hokulea and Hawai'iloa. So that's why the name stuck. And just because it was, he basically, you know, Nainoa said, what are you going to do? How are you going to build the canoe? And Uncle Rido said, I'm going to call my friends. So that's how the name came to be. Okay, so I think we talked about how, you know, one of the greatest lessons that our va'a, you know, taught, not even just back then, but even now today with the state of Ohia, but basically reminders that the forests, you know, need to be healthy in order to provide the resources. So in order to, you know, to be sustainable, to ensure that there will be koa trees for generations to come, but also to show respect for the tribes that donated the logs, they ended up going and they planted thousands and thousands of trees. So I believe that this photo is from one of the ceremonies where they actually brought up some of the Sea Alaska Corporation board members and affiliates. I know Uncle Billy talks about that himself, you know, must have planted thousands of trees just on his own. So if you think about the magnitude of all the trees that were actually planted, and then how that is also benefiting us today, how many years later. So I think that that's a beautiful legacy of our canoe, to remind everyone that we need to keep the native forest healthy. Okay, so you know, they started building the canoe in '91, and on July 24th, 1993, they actually launched Hawai'iloa for the first time. So many of you do know that story. We'll share that a little bit, but basically the canoe was launched. So the canoe was launched on the 24th, 1993. It was at Pier 36 at Honolulu Harbor. Okay, so there's a lot of different people that were involved. Obviously, you can see Uncle Rido here. Here's another couple shots right here, the canoe getting ready to go into the water. And then I love this photo here. You can see Uncle Rido, and then right behind him is Ben's Tutukane, Uncle Wally. So pretty beautiful moment. So again, this is why when we celebrate the birthday, we actually use the date of July 24th, since that was the original date. Okay, so again, the canoe was built. They did a lot of sail trials around the islands, and then they found that the canoe was bow heavy. So obviously you don't want your canoe to be bow heavy, so they had the bright idea to flip the canoe around. So the canoe was actually turned around, and they carved more out of the hulls to make the hulls a little bit lighter. And then they put the canoe back into the water, did more sea trials, and then in 1995, they did the maiden voyage to Tahiti, where they also sailed with Hokulea and with Makali'i. And it's pretty cool when you hear the different stories. You know, they always say how Hawai'iloa had amazing weather, and how they would go back and forth on the radios, and how maybe like Hokulea would have funny weather, and Hawai'iloa, you know, they would be fine. It's pretty cool to hear the different stories about the voyage. So they did do that voyage. And then Uncle, do you want to share a little bit about any part of that voyage with us?
Yeah, well, actually, you know, it really was true that we were blessed on Hawai'iloa as far as that particular voyage. You know, there were 11 of us on the crew, and basically we really gelled and became a real ohana. And it was a type of one of those type of voyages where everybody did their kuleana, and if something was wrong, we just went ahead and fixed it without being told by a captain or somebody else, you know, to fix things. And because of that, it was really just clear sailing. And so we, many times we would be just beautiful winds and good weather. And oh, there's Dennis. Hi, Dennis. our watch captain, I just popped into the screen. But basically, I was part of what was called the Fair Weather Watch. And that was with Dennis and Reggie Kaunui. And every time we came up on deck, it was beautiful. And then if we had to go sleep, we would go down, and next thing you know, we'd hear the lightning and the thunder. And so we got the designation as the Fair Weather Watch. And on top of that, we're all not very tall. And because of that, we're all about the same size. They also gave us a nickname, the Menuhune volleyball team. But we did end up setting a record. 20 days was the length of the voyage. And actually it was 19, but we had to wait a day for them to get ready because we had gotten there so fast that they weren't ready in Papaete to greet us. So we had to wait offshore for an extra day, waiting for them to get ready for the actual coming, the greeting into the Papaete harbor. But we were truly blessed, okay, with good weather and had some, really neat moments, okay, but overall it was just a blessing, okay, to be able to work with the people that we had on board.
Very cool. Uncle Dennis, can you share with us anything, any mana'o or even a mo'olelo about your time during the maiden voyage on Hawai'iloa?
I just popped in because Billy told us to come. But now that was one of the best trips that we had, or that I've had the opportunity to have. And like Brad said, he used to call us a fair weather watch because every time we came up, it got clear. It was really nice sailing with it. Sailing Hawai'iloa is a bit different from being on Hoku. When you go down in the bunks, the way they had it before, you go to, as soon as you went down in the bunks, everything got quiet. It's really a quiet ride, soft. Yeah, it was really soft. You weren't jerked around. You didn't feel the pounding of the ocean, and I think it's because of the hulls. It kind of cushions a lot of that, little, and of course heavier. But like you said and Brad said, we'd be sailing along and we get radio reports from Hokulea, and they'd be in like squalls and heavy rain and all this kind of stuff, and we were sailing in sunny weather and just cruising along, and Snake and Scotty and Kimo were playing cribbage, and all kind of stuff. But it was really a good trip. Enjoyed it.
Mahalo, Uncle. Okay, so I think that Vance was asking to list the entire crew. So I know that I do, and forgive me if this is incorrect. This is from the records that we have. So I have, and this is just from the crew to Tahiti. So I have that, let's see, the navigators were Uncle Bruce Blankenfield and Uncle Chad Babayan. Then I have that the crew was Uncle Snake Ahi, Uncle Kimo, Uncle Dennis, Uncle Brad, Uncle Terry, Terry He, Uncle Eugene Kewalo, Uncle Reggie Keanui, Palani Kelly, and Scott Sullivan. So that's who I have in this document that I think Uncle Billy had given me with some of the different files. And then I think, what were you saying, Ben? Oh, okay, I think, sorry, I was looking at the chat. I think Ben was referring to something else, to a different question. But yeah, so that's the first crew that I have listed. Uncle Brad or Uncle Dennis or Uncle Billy, was there anyone that I may have missed on that?
Only the gorilla that was chasing the canoe, that was following us. We had so many bananas that we kept on throwing the overripe ones into the ocean, and we had a gorilla that was following the canoe. But other than that, no, that you got everybody.
Okay. And then Uncle Billy, I know you're here. Do you have a funny story or mo'olelo? Because I think you were on Makali'i. So do you have any recollections of just anything about Hawai'iloa at the time when you were sailing on Makali'i during that voyage?
Actually, Hokulea and Hawai'iloa left about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks before Makali'i did, or we did. The canoe wasn't even finished by the time Hoku and Hawai'iloa left. So we were Johnny-come-latelys. And it was a good voyage for Hoku and Hawai'iloa. And like they said, one of the fastest sails ever. But when we started, the door slammed shut. If there was a storm out there, we were in it. If there's doldrums out there, we got it and stuff. So we got there way after. In fact, I believe, Hoku and Hiki had made, I mean, Hoku and Hawai'iloa had made it to Raiatea and back before we even got to Tahiti. So, but the only good thing about arriving in Tahiti on Makali'i was we arrived on my birthday, thank goodness. But yeah, we were, I remember calling, you know, one time I was on a radio and I spoke to Kat Fuller. And Kat was on Hawai'iloa, so I mean, Hokulea. And I asked her, how you guys doing? And she responded with a joyful tone, we are coming into Matavai Bay. And we were still far out, way out. So it was a good voyage for them, for both of them. It was a good voyage for Makali'i too. We had no fair weather sailors on our crew. We got slammed every day. But the crew learned trial by fire. And but we all made it. We all got there, and celebrations ensued.
Very nice. Thanks, Uncle.
Sure.
And then so for also just to note that on the way back, what they did is they reenacted one of the possible, you know, migrations of Hawai'iloa. So they went by way of Nukuhiva. So I believe that this is actually where this I believe this is where this photo is off of the Marquesas. I don't know if anyone needs to correct me on this, but I do believe this photo is technically from Marquesas. So, but I couldn't find any photos from the Tahiti portion. So again, I believe that this is Te Aorere in the background as well. Is that correct, Uncle Billy? Te Aorere in the back?
Te Aorere, New Zealand.
And then I believe that Te Aorere was Te Aorere built with part of the first blueprints of Hawai'iloa?
No. From what I understand, when the Voyaging Society and NHCAP couldn't find logs here in Hawaii, I believe Hector Busby made the offer of 2 kauri logs. But because the project was supposed to be Hawaiian, we couldn't accept kauri logs. So the question is, how can we accept Sitka spruce logs? Well, yeah, if you go through Captain Cook's diaries and all of the, you know, they found different canoes throughout the island that were made of pine, redwood, pine, spruce, whatever. And so when they asked the people back then, you know, natives back then, where did they get the logs from? They said it was gifts from the gods. So they actually floated in from the Pacific Northwest. One of the largest vessels recorded, canoes that recorded, was 100 feet long. So even if the spruce logs did not come from Hawaii, it was a part of our culture based upon logs floating in. So Hector, because they wouldn't take, we wouldn't accept the kauri log, he said, okay, I'll build my own waka. And he did. And that's the first waka from New Zealand. It was built in a very, very long time. And on the maiden voyage of back in '92, I believe it was, when Te Aorere sailed from New Zealand to Rarotonga, Malpiailug was the navigator on board. And with him was Max Yawaramai and Clay Bertleman. So those 3, along with the Maori crew.
Nice. Thank you, Uncle, for clarifying. Appreciate it. Okay, everyone. So they say that once Hawai'iloa returned, that I believe 2 days later, they put both Hokulea and Hawai'iloa into a container to ship them to Seattle. When they got to Seattle, I believe that Hokulea went down south, and then Hawai'iloa began its journey to the Northwest Alaska. And then from there, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and pass this back to you, Uncle Brad.
Okay. Yeah, so I was really fortunate. It was divided into legs. There was one group that brought it from Seattle to Vancouver. And then I was part of the voyage from Vancouver to Ketchikan, and then got to ride the continue from Ketchikan all the way to Juneau. So 2 out of the 3 legs actually I was able to be part of. Luckily I was a teacher and it was during the summer, so it worked out perfectly and I wasn't, missing any work. But yeah, the canoes basically, when I started in Vancouver, we did have to actually eventually in the Alaskan waters get into the inland passage. And it's pretty treacherous at times because of the tidal changes. There are parts or straits in the inland passage which you really got to know what you're doing, because at times when it's low tide, there are rapids. And then, of course, you go in high tide and it's clear sailing. So luckily for us in Vancouver, we had the help of Hutch Hunt, who was a fisherman, and he became the pilot to actually lead us up into actually British Columbia first, the home of the Tsimshian Nation. And I mean, as far as the actual, I think the most impressive thing about the connection between us and the people of British Columbia and the Native Americans of this area, they have a practice in their culture which is potlatch, and the way that they get their status in society is really by giving away everything they have. And they have these huge gatherings and parties where they just give out money and gifts and you just give away everything. It works out because they know that in another week or so, somebody else will have a potlatch and they'll get all things back in return. But this is really what they did for us, is every place we stopped, we were potlatched. And we had, of course, a beautiful celebration. First of all, the greetings in each of the places, they were all in their regalia, their native costume. They would come out and stand on the docks or on the bluffs or the hillsides above the docks. And you can see some of the pictures there of the crowds, that we would be actually, coming into for the actual potlatch and the interchange. But we did make our way up through the Tsimshian Nation, up through British Columbia, and eventually got into Alaskan waters. And of course, the first stop in the Alaskan waters was Ketchikan and Saxman, which is kind of one of the strongholds of the Tlingit nation. But as we were going along, one of my duties was, I was kind of the protocol officer. I was having to get everybody ready because when we do the potlatches, there's always a sharing. They're always expecting that you're going to share something of your culture. And so because I was part of a halau and had a lot of experience in dancing, I was teaching the other crew members chants and dances that we could actually perform when we got to the different villages. And oh, these pictures are great. But basically, though, it was, again, this beautiful exchange, okay, between the Tlingits and the Haidas and the Tsimshians and, of course, ourselves. They showered us with gifts. We're always thinking of us as giving people, lowest spirit, but they were just, again, you had to be careful. They have a custom, if you make a compliment about something that they might be wearing or something that they have, they immediately give it to you. It is your gift. And it's an insult to refuse to take it. So again, you had to be very careful. We had an experience, one of the elder women came down to the canoe to look. And we had one of the crew members was looking at her bracelet. She had a beautiful carved silver bracelet, and she made just a comment, "Oh, that's a beautiful bracelet, Auntie." And next thing you know is that she's pulling it off of her wrist and passing it and said, "It's yours." And these are, like heirlooms that are passed on through the family, kind of like Hawaiian jewelry, how many times it's passed down generation to generation. But again, you had to be careful when you made compliments about things, because their culture mandates that they give it to you if you make a compliment about it. The exchange, again, just again, beautiful, incredible. What we also found out is that we would get to a village, go to the next village, but we would start seeing a lot of the same faces. And what we found is that the people would get on barges or on cruise ships or ferries during the night to sail to the next stop. And when they got to, of course, they wanted to be part of the celebration when we got to the next stop too. And so we were gathering friends as we went along. They kept on following the canoe until finally in Juneau, I think they estimated we had over 3,000 people on the beach greeting us in Juneau. But just an incredible cultural exchange. And one of the things that, we were taking the canoe home. We were taking it back into its home waters. We were showing the people, this is what your gift of the logs, what you had been able to, what we were able to do with your logs. And I think the story that always comes to mind is when we were going into a little port or a little village called St. Petersburg. And we weren't scheduled to stay overnight. It was only going to be for a few hours because the people, the Tlingit tribe that was greeting us there, they felt bad because the village was started as a Norwegian village. And it was more Western than Tlingit or Haida. And because of that, they didn't want to be our host, but they would meet us at the next stop, which was Cake, and they would join the festivities there. While we were docked, we had a lot of people come down to visit the canoe. I got a free moment. I walked up the pier, and I went up to a little shop that was up at the top of the, above where the dock area was. And it was a Native American art shop. And when I was coming back to the canoe, there was an elderly woman, one of their elders, standing in her beautiful button blanket. And when I greeted her, I said, we're here to thank you. Would you like to come down to the canoe and visit and come and see the beautiful gift that you have given us? We have to thank you for the gift of these logs. And she turned to me and she said, no, you don't have to thank us. We need to thank you. And I was kind of taken because why would they thank us for, again, having being this gift of logs given to us? And so I said, no, but we couldn't have built this canoe. We didn't have the wood available in Hawaii to be able to do this. And it was because of your gift that we're able to make the canoe. We need to really thank you for that. And she said, no, we need to thank you. And then she shared with me, they needed to thank me thank us because we saved their culture. And it really, she then explained the kids, the younger generation, they wanted to be rap stars. They wanted to be professional football players. They wanted to be everything except Tlingit or Haida.
Yep.
And what this was it was a chance when they heard the canoe was coming, the kids would come to her, one of the elders, and say, would you teach me how to make my button blanket? Because I want to be wearing it when we greet the canoe. Or would you teach me a song and a dance that I can perform for the Hawaiians when they come? And we had no idea, I don't think, of the impact that we had on them as a people. But that beautiful exchange of the culture is what, to me, is really what makes Hawai'iloa so special. This not only exchange of, again, the cultures, but also the idea of reinforcing the cultural aspects of both. So that's just a little something to add.
Thank you for that, Uncle Brad. You know, I've also connected with a lot of different Tlingit and Haida and Tsimshian, you know, maybe around my age or even younger, just because of the fact that the logs come from there, and they often share, oh, I was 5 and I remember seeing the canoe, and, you know, they talk about the beautiful legacy that they remember, and seeing the canoe, and how after that their families got more involved with building canoes, or even just in general wanting to know more about their culture and exploring those different things. So that's a really beautiful legacy of Hawai'iloa. I know there's a quote that I would quote often when I used to do talks and tours. I want to say that it was, I believe it was Judson Brown, and he said something to the effect of, you know, we do this, but not only for the Hawaiian people, but we did this for all people that want to stand firmly planted in the ways of their ancestors while still moving forward. So obviously, you know, even if you look at our crew, everyone that puts their time, their effort, their energy, their mana, their aloha into the canoe, you know, we're all from different places, but I think that with Hawai'iloa, it's a bigger symbol of just representing our ancestors, you know. So for a lot of us, I think we're able to honor the land that we live upon, the ancestors of the land that we live upon, as well as honor our own ancestors as well. So I think that Hawai'iloa just is a constant reminder to honor our ancestors and all of those that came before us. So, you know, especially for all of us new guys that are able to care for the canoe, it's such a big honor. So thank you to Uncle Brad and Uncle Dennis and Uncle Billy and all of you that, you know, have kind of paved the way and allow us to care for Hawai'iloa. Okay, so with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the rebuilding of Hawai'iloa. And actually, I'm sorry, Uncle Billy, I'm gonna call you out again really quick. Do you wanna maybe just share a little bit about what happened between the time when the canoe returned from the voyage in Alaska all the way up until the friends took back the canoe in order to rebuild it?
Okay. After the return of both Hawai'iloa and Hokulea to Hawaii, both canoes at the time were owned by the Bishop Museum and Hawaii Maritime Center, and they were at the Hawaii Maritime Center. But very little was being done with them, and they weren't being cared for. And then there was a point at which the museum gave Hokulea back to the PBS. So that left Hawai'iloa still there at the Maritime Center. And as we all know, that's why you guys are down there every weekend working on the canoe, because of the materials that it's made of is very fragile, you know, and exposed to the weather. And I remember John Cruz, people would come down and we'd look at, and the front the manus were just cracking wide open. And actually, even before then, when the canoe first came back, when both canoes first came back from mainland, the museum had asked if Hawai'iloa could be brought to the campus, to the campus at the Bishop Museum. So Rido said, yes, you can, but you need a cover. But when we took it up there, no cover was available. They didn't make that available for the canoe. So every morning when the sun would rise over Punch Bowl, the sunlight would hit a beam of Hawai'iloa, and slowly but surely the bottom of the canoe started cracking open. By the time the canoe left the Bishop Museum to go back to be repaired, the crack, if you're standing in the port hall, if you're standing in the port hall, you look down, you can see the grass underneath because the hull had split open between 6 to 8 inches. You have to remember, it wasn't glass back then. And spruce is a straight grain wood. So once it starts to check, it's going to go long. And so Rhino was trying to get it fixed. You know, they would repair the canoe and then put it in the water, and crack some more, take it out, repair the canoe. And then it was just basically left over at Maritime Center. And because even if it was owned by the Bishop Museum and the Hawaii Maritime Center, I guess everyone thought that management of the canoes was the Voyaging Society. But the canoe was just kind of left. So there was a point at which, after all that repair work, going in and out of the water, we decided that I didn't decide it, but Rido and the Voyaging Society, they decided to just pull the canoe out of the water. The best thing to do would be pull the canoe out or take it apart before it gets, you know, further damaged. So it was out of the water for, I'd say, 10 to 12 years. You know, I think. The first thing that happened, though, was that the hulls were taken to METC and refurbished there, and glassed by Bob Perkins and his crew there. After that, the hulls were brought to the Friends of Hokulea and Hawai'iloa, and the repair work where Joy's talking about started. But it first started with Bob Perkins and getting that done over there. And then it was given over to Jerry Ongaias, who led the refurbishing of the canoe. And he was involved at the very beginning when the canoe was being built over at Pier 36. Brought together, he went down and he met Rido and wanted to help out. So he, along with Wally and Rido, and he did a lot of the work that was done in Hawai'iloa and Eala back then, those days. But yeah, the canoe, it was out of the water for a very, very long time. And it needed somebody like Jerry. I guess you could call Jerry as a builder, kind of like a navigator, you know, because what he said, every time I talked to him about getting Hawai'iloa rebuilt, he says he has the picture of the finished canoe in his mind. And all he's doing is journeying towards that picture. So I think for those of you who are continuing to work on Hawai'iloa, have that picture in your mind. You know, don't look at it how it is now, but that finished product that like Jerry saw when we finally launched the canoe. I think it's the same thing as raising an island. You got to see over the horizon, envision that destination, that finished canoe, and work towards making that vision a reality. Yeah.
Mahalo, Uncle. So I remember Uncle Jerry sharing with me the story of when he first went down to go meet Uncle Rido. I guess or he first went to Nainoa, and Nainoa sent him to Rido. So he goes to Uncle Rido, and I believe that the first thing he was tasked with, they pointed at Hokulea, they say, you see those pueo? Build that for Hawai'iloa. So that was Uncle Jerry's first task with Hawai'iloa, is he built the pueo on the mast. So he always shares that. And they're the same pueo, actually, that are still on the mast to this day. So, you know, we love Uncle Jerry. All of you know that him, and especially Tim, his grandson, his mo'opuna, you know, put a lot of time, effort, and energy into the rebuilding of Hawai'iloa. You know, he, and you'll see, I will share the link to watch Na Lo'ea, which covers Uncle Jerry as the master canoe builder and talking about the legend returning. And you'll see there's a quote where he talks about, I can't allow something that I helped build to die. to see it rot away, something to that extent. So I think it's also a testament as to why a lot of us work so hard to keep Hawai'iloa, to to keep the canoe alive for as long as we can. So it's a really beautiful documentary. So I will include that along with the documentary where the trees were felled as well. So you guys can watch that. It's a really beautiful film that was done by OEV by Naalehu, where you could see his mom. You saw Lily Kala and some of the old Alaska photos. So it's a really beautiful short documentary. So I'll be sure to send that out later, and would love for all of you guys to check that out if you haven't seen it already. So as Uncle Billy said, we spent a lot of time lashing the canoe. That's actually how I was involved. First came to the canoe and met everyone after my Te Mana o Te Moana voyage. I started going down to Hokulea, and there's hundreds of people there. I remember Kat said, "Hey, come down. We're gonna start lashing Hawai'iloa." And so I showed up one day. I also am connected to Uncle Billy through my my kumu lomi. And so, I knew that connection there, and obviously was excited to learn how to lash. And so I went down and started lashing the canoe. And that's the end of the story, I guess, for me. I just kind of kept going. They let me keep coming, and so I became part of the lashing crew. There was a really small number of us here. You can see some of the pictures here. We were dubbed the gorillas, so you can see some of the wahine here, particularly Auntie Denise, and I think you can see Kelly there. You can also see, I know that the bottom photo was a little bit, when you guys, I forget exactly, was that 2010, Uncle, when you guys did that? Because that was a little bit before when I came along, when the deck
Yeah,
was
I
starting to
think
be
so.
done
Yeah.
or whatnot. Yeah. So there was different phases of the canoe being rebuilt. Like obviously the glassing at METC, once it was moved to the shop. Then I think when we started coming into Lash was maybe either towards the end of 2012 or beginning of 2013. So there was a small crew of us that started to lash. And, you have some people like Kelly, where she'd be with PVS, make them food, and then come over and lash Hawai'iloa in the afternoon. So it was a lot of manpower that we needed, and there was really only a few of us. So literal blood, sweat, and tears that went into putting the canoe back together. Unfortunately, I didn't include as many photos as I would like. Hear me? I can hear my audio going in and out. But anyways, so I wanted to share that we ended up putting the canoe back into the water. I believe it was March 24th, 2014. And once we put the canoe back into the water, there were some challenges. At the time, Malama Honua was starting. So there was a lot of people that were sailing. There was a few different things that we had to fix. So we actually pulled the canoe out of the water again to fix some things, put the canoe back into the water, and then we actually had our first sail on October 11th, 2015. And what was kind of special about this, so Uncle Billy was actually on Malama Honua, sailing around South Africa, or approaching South Africa. I think he was off the coast of Mozambique at the time. So we had the honor of having Uncle Dennis Chun be our kapena for our first sail. Uncle Brad was there as well. It was an interesting task. At the time, one of the biggest motivators to get the canoe in the water was to honor the grandparents of Ben. So we set out to not only prepare the canoe to be a part of their life celebration and their paddle out, but we were also tasked by Uncle Billy to have a first sail before that, because we wanted to honor Hawai'iloa, this beautiful moment of the canoe returning to the sea, and to not have it be specifically associated with a sad time. We wanted to give the va'a that moment. So a week before, we actually had the first sail. So these are a few photos that were taken by Justin, who was with OEB at the time. And then, if you don't mind me calling you guys out again, I'm gonna call Uncle Uncle Dennis first. Uncle Dennis, would you mind maybe sharing just any mono'o about the first sail and what it meant to you, and especially captaining for us, if you don't mind?
Hey, you know, we're supposed to be working on our own canoe over here today. Billy called
Kalamai.
Billy called and said, "Hey, you guys gotta come watch this." Nah. Yeah, it was an honor to be on the canoe on Hawai'iloa again. I hadn't been on Hawai'iloa for years, and you know, living on Kauai, you know, you don't get to spend as much time as far as on dry dock and stuff with Hawai'iloa or Hokulea. So I was kind of honored actually to be asked to sail on that first sail. But it was really nice. It was a really nice sail with, you know, fair winds. Yeah, Brent, fair winds all the time. And smooth sailing. Yeah, it felt like it was really ready to go. I mean,
Maybe I need the Fairwinds crew to come along with us every once in a while.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. And it was good. It felt like it just kind of, as soon as the sails opened, it just jumped. You know, it just took off. And it was kind of fun trying to figure out, okay, was the paddle like this last time? All kind of stuff. Yeah, can't remember where the stays were and all kind of stuff. So it was interesting. It was a good sail though. That was fun sailing with Brad again. I hadn't sailed with Brad since, when was that? 90 something or another, yeah. Anyway, since I got the floor, sorry Joy, but you know, sitting next to me over here is the Honorable John Cruz.
Morning.
Uncle.
But those of you that don't know, he was that first crew of Hokulea with Billy in 1976, yeah. So I know some of you saw that video that Billy did talking about his experiences on Hokulea in 76, and you know, JK over here he's got stories. If you want to know stories, he's got stories.
Yeah, Uncle, you want to share anything with us, Uncle? You have a mo'olelo for us since you're here. Thank you for joining us. It's nice to have you on and good to see you.
Morning, everybody. Yesterday I was watching the sun go down at Koloa Landing. I moved into my new house.
Yay!
And Dennis and Becky helped me and Kepa move. And you know, had 3 dumpsters that we threw away stuff that I would have kept. But my son told me, Dad, memories are good, but termites are not good for the new house. So I filled 3 big dumpsters, and there was a lot of stuff that probably could have kept. But anyway, yesterday too, when I was at the wall, Kathy Moneno called me, and I guess she is doing some documentary again. And so she wanted to talk to me, but she wanted to maybe get on a Zoom with my son and I, Kepa. You know, she has talked to Buffalo of that first 1976. And now since there's only 4 knuckleheads left, we are
Hey.
Yeah, we're honored, you know, because when you look at it, it goes, oh, like I think on the 17th and 18th of this month is when we crossed the equator all those years ago. And I remember, Billy remembers one time around like yesterday and the day before, we were sailing, and the only thing that was on the horizon to the west, Mao kept looking, and we saw this cloud, and there was no clouds on the horizon in front of us on the east and looking towards the west. And under this cloud, you could see an aqua loom. And Mao said, no, there's an island. So Buffalo asked him, how far do you think? It was all maybe 100 miles, and you could see the loom. So when I went to Google Maps this past week, I was trying to look for all those islands. There is Malden, Vostok, Bellenhausen. They got all these Russian names. There's probably Tahitian names to them, but there's one called Caroline, and Caroline is the biggest island. It's a long island, but it's the only one has the lagoon in the middle. So I was thinking that might have been the island that we saw, having the reflection underneath the cloud bank. It was pretty cool. That's the first time I saw it, and I always kind of like, hey, you know, when you get close to islands, besides the birds and besides the clouds hanging over the island, if there's some kind of big lake or lagoon, you're going to have the reflection of that where it is. Anyway, I was listening to you guys. Yeah, you guys keep talking. That's better.
Oh, but we want to hear you talk, Uncle. We're going to have to schedule one whole session just for Uncle. Okay, you got that, Michael and Iliahi? We got to schedule Uncle John for just his own session.
No, you got to remember, I was thinking, you know, that quote from GOT. It says, I am the shield. I am the shield that guards the realms of men. Yeah, so I always thought about that. Hey, shit, maybe I ought to make shirts. Anyway, I'm good.
Mahalo, Uncle. But really, we want to schedule you for your own session, right, everybody? We're going to work on that.
Yes, yes.
Yes, please.
We would love that. Mahalo for sharing.
You better have 10 hours.
So we could do it. We could do it. Okay, so like I said, we went back into the water 2015. We continued to do different sails. In 2016, I want to say in late April, we were actually invited to participate in part of Olokai event. So we had a really special inter-island, I want to say sail, but I'll keep it real, is technically a little bit more of a tow. But I want to say that it was the first time that Hawai'iloa had crossed the channel in, and I may be incorrect, but Uncle Billy, was it 13 or 14 years, I believe?
I think longer. Longer
Oh,
than that.
longer. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is actually, like I said, when we brought the canoe to Lahaina, and it was pretty special because we were able to participate in this Olokai event. And for me, it was pretty interesting because we were taking the canoe all the way out there, and it was a beautiful thing. It was a great opportunity for us to do that. But what was very special was we were actually able to be there so that Uncle could be present for the anniversary of Hokule'a's departure. So they were actually, I want to say, were able to go to Honolulu Bay with on Ducky with I forget who, with Uncle Snake and a few other people. So that was pretty special that they were able to do that. What was that like, Uncle? Sorry, I'm going to call you out again. How did that feel for you, to be able to visit, especially after, bringing Hawai'iloa over? I mean, that was a pretty big deal for us. And I know for you as the president of our organization that cares for this va'a, what was it like for you to go back and to visit the place where you had left? I think at that point it was like around I might butcher the years, but what was that like for you? Can you just share really quick, please?
Well, I mean, going back to Honolulu Bay is always a different kind of experience. As I said in the video that we did earlier, there's mixed feelings during that departure. And so all of it comes back. It does come back, but it's also good in that we had the three of us that were there. Was myself, Snake, and Penny. Snake being from Maui, and he is Mr. Honolulu Bay when it comes to surfing. You know, it was a good experience to be with all of them, and especially to be. I'm sorry we couldn't take Hawai'iloa with us. That was the original plan, was to go to Honolulu Bay with Hawai'iloa. It didn't happen. That's why we had to take Ducky over. But no, it was a good experience. It was a good experience. We'll get Hawai'iloa over to Honolulu Bay sometime soon.
Everyone heard it, right? We're recording. We have proof. Okay, just making sure. Mahalo, Uncle. Appreciate it. But yeah, so that was pretty special. You know, two things that I kind of wanted to highlight as well is, you know, Uncle Billy's pretty tactical, right? So one of the things that I wanted to mention, what I thought was pretty cool before Uncle Billy left for Africa voyage, when we were discussing who was going to be the captain for the first sail, you know, if you want to think about, you know, we asked Uncle Dennis, and, you know, you guys have to remember that this was prior to Uncle Dennis and Uncle John launching Namahoe. So it's almost like practice for Uncle Dennis, right? Which I thought was pretty cool. You know, that whole thing with perpetuating and passing down of the kuleana. So what was also interesting is when we were also in Maui, Uncle Billy had to leave and also, you know, left the canoe to us. And I believe it was Kala Thomas who captained the canoe home. I think we tried to ask Uncle Snake. He didn't want to do it. I think Archie didn't want to do it either. So I think that that's also a beautiful thing. And another thing that we're always really thankful of is the fact that they do allow us, you know, to step up and assume more kuleana and to just give us the autonomy to do these types of things and to entrust us with something precious like that. So I think that was really awesome that we had that opportunity to do that. So we had Kala Thomas that was acting as captain on the way home. Okay, so we ended up coming back to Honolulu, doing different, so obviously we've been sailing, we ended up doing a partnership with KVA, which was really special. So we were sailing with them often, bringing on different captains. Sometimes we'd bring down Uncle Chad a lot. We just continued to do different work on the canoe. We were filling a lot of the gaps at the time because Hikianalia and Hokulea were on the worldwide voyage. So if you can imagine, we were the only voyaging canoe at METC, so we were able to do a lot of the different talks and tours, just to basically fill you know, that void while the voyaging canoe, you know, while Mama was gone. So that way, you know, the community here still had a voyaging canoe to connect with. And as many of you may or may not know, Uncle Billy always wanted Hawai'iloa to be open to all, you know, ohana va'a focused. So we were really happy to be able to help fill that gap during that time. Then we started preparing for Hokulea to come home and to welcome some of the other voyaging canoes of our ohana. And it was pretty special in 2017. We were able to participate in the arrival of Hokulea coming back home. You know, this was really special to be in the water. You know, it's pretty historic. You know, I've had the honor of being able to sail in a fleet, and I feel like it's a different type of experience, you know, when you turn around and you're literally surrounded by va'a. So this was really special to see Hawai'iloa sit among you know, its place along all of the voyaging canoes of Hawaii and beyond. It was really beautiful to sail with all these canoes we've never sailed with, or to be reunited in the water with canoes. You know, when was the last time Makali'i and Hawai'iloa were in the water together, right? You know, Hawai'iloa had never been in the water with other va'a like Okeanos or Fafa'ite. So it was really special to sail with those va'a, very special to see the canoes all anchored together. It was a really special time. And also it was really special because we were able to honor a lot of the crew members. I mean, I'm sorry we weren't able to take all of you with us, but it was really special to finally have, you know, a special event and a special ceremony where not only the va'a but our crew could take part of. So thank you, all of you, for all of the time and effort you put into the canoe. Sorry. Okay, so Okay, so as you know, since then, that was 2017. Also in the process, which was a big blessing, was after a few years of trying to coerce him, we have Kabena, Ben Dumoran, that has stepped up as captain for Hawai'iloa. So if you don't mind, I am going to pass this on to Ben. I want to go ahead and have him talk a little bit about the Koa Harvest Project and future plans. Okay, so Ben, are you ready? Ben, are
Yep,
you there?
yep, I'm good to
Okay.
go. Can I share my screen?
Oh, yeah, I can.
Okay, wait, let me see how to do this. Let's see if I can do this.
You might have to make him the host, Joy.
Okay, you want to try now? Sorry about that.
Yeah. Okay, wait, hold on. Okay, so can you guys see the pictures? Okay, so
Yep.
this is a part of our harvest here. So this is me and Eliahi and Uncle Billy checking out the stump of one of the coal logs we harvested.
I think you're gonna have to click on each photo.
Yeah. So this is, if you can see, this is the stump itself with the growth rings. This was planted in 1990, wait.
Ben, right now, I think you're just sharing the folder of all the photos and not the individual photos yourself. You might want to
Oh,
share your
okay.
desktop.
Shoot. Is that better?
No.
No?
Again.
Try double clicking because I think or if you go back to the share screen
That-
function, change it to
Yeah, right
sharing
now
your window. Because I think
right
it's
now
only
it's just
sharing that
window. You want to show
window.
your whole screen.
Yeah, so we can't see.
Sharing the window?
Yeah, or go back to the Zoom and go to share screen. And there should be like a bunch of screens should pop up, and then pick the one that says, it's like to share your whole window. I want to say.
Try minimizing that folder that of pictures and see what else comes up.
Share. Point of screen. Portion of screen? No. Files. No. Basic. Whiteboard, iPad, photos. Photos. That one? How's that?
That works.
Bingo.
Good.
That works. Okay, now we
All
can
right.
get rolling. Okay, so let me start over. This is Eliahi, myself in the green, and Uncle Billy with the camera, checking out one of the tree stumps. Well, I think I gotta go one at a time, huh?
Yep.
Okay.
Hey Ben, what are you showing with on the stump itself with your hands? What are you trying to show there?
So right there, I'm looking at a section of the stump or in the tree that we could possibly make a mast or a boom or a spark.
Okay. All right. Yep.
Tree it was, but we were looking at. Can you guys see this one? This next one?
Not yet.
Oh, it's not working. Huh.
Under the share screen options, can you just share your whole desktop? That should be the first option in the whole list under Zoom.
Okay, wait, hold on. Huh. Share. You see screen, whiteboard, iPad, photos, and then one of my files, inbox, and then another file.
Share screen. Try
Share
share
screen.
screen.
Can you see it now?
Yeah, that did it. You should be able to share all of them without any problems now.
Okay, so let's try this. So this is the stump, and you can see all the beautiful growth rings in it. And that's me in the forest.
Survivor.
So this is one of the arborists. He came, one of the guys who helped cut down the trees. So if you look to the left in the back, see the tree with the orange tag? That's the tree we're trying to get to. So we had all these small trees. He's clearing a path. So when the tree fell, it wouldn't just go nuts and damage all kinds of things. So he's harvesting. And so this is the tree when it's down. So as you can see, he was good enough to fell it right in the pocket he created by removing the smaller trees.
Which island is this on? Or which area of which island?
This is in Keoho on the Big Island. So this is the road to the forest, and you can see in the background, there's I forget what the name of the equipment was, but pretty much it was a big picker with big arm with a claw on it, and this thing would lift up the logs, set it in the road, and get it ready for the truck to take down. So here this is when we were hunting for the trees. So on the left here, we're geotagging the tree so we can find our way back to it. And we're marking the trees. This is Uncle Kimo in the foreground here, Kimo Lyman. So this is so up in Keoho, they have been planting since, I don't even know when they started planting, but this planting was from 1977, I believe. And you can see one of the trees in the background I tagged. So we went with, how many trips do we have, Uncle Billy? 2 or 3, yeah, going up.
Yeah, 2 or 3.
For the logs. So we went a few times just to find the right logs for this project. And this is what's his name, Uncle Billy? Dancel.
Yeah, Dancel.
Dancel. He's the guy in charge on this property up in Keoho, works for KS. Oh, there's our photographer, Vance, getting a shot of our arborist cutting down the tree. So you can see this tree is pretty big. I mean, when he's cutting it down, it made quite a thump. Here's another one. But I don't know, I couldn't get over the growth rings on this thing. Look how beautiful those growth rings are. And this is the biggest ones we could find. You know, we tried to go back to the the 91 planting that Uncle Billy then did when you know, when they invited the Alaskan tribes to come up. But the trees they just weren't big enough. They didn't have the growth. So we had to go back a little farther, and we went to the 77 planting.
Ben, sorry to interrupt. I have a question.
Yeah.
About the previous photo. Sorry to make you back.
One more?
Curious, because the tree, instead of being like circular, it looks like it's a kind of elliptical. No, you were right. The one with the rings. I was wondering, do you by chance remember the orientation? Like, were you facing north? Like, is it oblong, like elliptical, stretched along like the north-south axis, or east-west? Do you know? Or does Uncle Billy or anybody else who was there know? Iliahi?
No, you know, we didn't. I was so excited. I was taking
Darian,
you were navigating in the forest?
all we cared about was straight.
Yeah.
It was straight.
Straight.
Priorities.
Yeah, I have the video of the tree falling down. You want me to share that?
Yeah, but
that would be awesome.
Yeah, where the sun goes and where the shade is, just from a biology point of view. Just how it looks more
Let's
like.
see, if you stop sharing, Ben, I'll start sharing. I'll show you the video.
Yeah, that ring growth is pretty amazing.
Okay.
Okay. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Chicken skin, man.
Ooh. Also, just so so that some of you know, the reason why we harvested was because, we need to build some new mass. So what we did is we actually did a big fundraiser in 2017, and the sole purpose of that fundraiser that we were so gracious to have the Hard Rock Cafe host us was for this mission to actually go to have funds to harvest these trees. So for me and the rest of the board, this was a really big deal, and we're so thankful to Ben, to Kabena, for carrying out this project, and obviously the rest of you who participated and made it happen, because this was a big deal. We raised a lot of money to be able to make this happen. We had press releases. We had so many people in the community that donated items that came to our fundraiser to make this happen. So it was a big deal that we were able to carry out the commitment that we made, the mission of the fundraiser. So I'm really looking forward to being able to go back to all of those people who made donations to us, or, whether they attended or they donated items, to the silent auction. I'm really looking forward to going back to them and provide, showing them maybe some of these photos, putting something together. So I hope to work with you on that, Vance, but I think it's a really beautiful thing that we go back to our community who have supported us and show them that we've carried out and we kept our word, and that with their help we're able to complete this mission. So thanks, Ben, and everyone for making it happen.
Okana, that's the Japanese. That's Ben's girlfriend.
So,
Hey, that's Japanese.
looking into the future, looking into the future, we
Ben, do you want me to share for you?
Yeah.
Put the screen
yes, please.
back on.
Put up
Okay.
the
Okay.
slideshow.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, everyone. I'm going to share my screen really quick. Can you guys see? Oh, sorry, it started over, sorry. Okay. Can you guys see?
No, no.
No.
No? Oh.
There we go.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Okay. So, as you know, PBS is gearing up to do a Pacific Rim voyage. And they're beginning in Alaska. So, my personal opinion is that whenever voyaging canoes go to Alaska, Hawai'iloa needs to represent. That being said, and I've shared this with Uncle Billy, my personal goal is get Hawai'iloa to Alaska at the start of the voyage, which will now be in 2022. So that being said, we have a lot of work. We're working on many major components, Yakos, the Mo'os, the Manu, the stanchion posts, mast, booms, and spars. Pretty much the entire va'a is being rebuilt or refurbished or manufactured new parts. So that's the immediate future. In the distant future, or maybe not so distant, because we have people working on it, but Uncle Billy has shared his vision of taking the canoe back to the original proposal, which was to have a canoe made with natural fibers and natural materials, let's say. Joey, do we have any pictures of that?
Sorry, I didn't put the kaula in.
Anyway.
Well, the top right is the natural
yeah, well,
sail,
the
right?
lauhala, yeah, the
Right,
lauhala,
like,
but not the
we have
kaula. Sorry.
We have the lauhala sail. I mean, so there are actually people in the community trying to revive the plants and the, I want to say, processes of, making sails and making kaula and all those kind of things. So we are working on an in-depth plan to bring back the arts of those particular skill sets and hopefully using it to relash, instead of with modern materials, relash Hawai'iloa with natural fibers, making us a set of sails out of lauhala, and all these kind of things where we're researching, or there are people researching, and that will be a future goal of ours, to bring Hawai'iloa back to that state. And as far as the future plans go, that's pretty much it. I mean, with Byron's passing, and in light of Nainoa's past this past Tuesday's webinar, I think it's more important than ever that we get Hawai'iloa back to Alaska for this voyage.
Hey, Ben, Steve, not to put you on the spot at all, but you were part of getting Hiki out yesterday, which you guys knocked it out of the park from what I understand. So that dry dock's going to begin, and that's Bob's Kuleana, right?
Correct.
Basically.
Yeah.
And Hoku's not going to go out of the water for a while.
Correct.
Are we starting to think about how do we possibly alternate between the Hiki dry dock and getting started in a real way back on Hawai'iloa?
Yes. So we need to have a conversation with Bob, because pretty much the property is University of Hawaii property, and
right.
Bob's in charge of it. So once I guess the rules are made of, how many people can go down and all that kind of thing, we need to ask Bob if we can set it up, to have either 2 crews or, I don't know, whatever the situation may be, right?
Yep. Okay.
Set it up so we can have Hawai'iloa crew and PVS crew, if you want to say.
That'd be awesome. Okay, good. Mahalo.
Okay, so did we have any other questions?
Well, Ben, I put it in the chat, but I was just wondering, so when we take Hawai'iloa back to the natural kaula and sails, what does that mean for the voyaging, right? Because can the sails and the kaula hold up for a trip to Alaska, for example? And with our knowledge of how to make them at this point, like we know in the past they could, but with our knowledge now, can they do that?
With our knowledge now, I think that'll be the fun part, is to test it. Just get out there and do it and have some fun. And if we'll start off small. If we go in the island and about us fine, we can go a little farther and a little farther until we can decide if we want to make those big long voyages again when the boat is in that state. I think that's the fun part. Not like all this other stuff is not fun, but yeah. Go ahead, Joy. Sorry.
I think too what people are wondering also is if we plan to sail to Alaska. So I know that when, I've had talks with Uncle Layton, and Uncle Layton's like, you guys sail one way and we'll ship the other way. But, what is the reality of that? Ben and I have had these conversations, but I feel like we just need to get there, even if it means we ship to and from. But that's just my little mana'o about that. So, because I feel like it's more important for us to get there than to sail to and from. Just the importance of needing to return and be present. But again, that's just my little mana'o. I don't know if that's what your question was leading towards, Lei. If you were asking specific, if we were going to try to sail to Alaska with the natural sails and the fibers.
I think for this specific rim voyage, logistically, it won't be possible. But that's not to say that we can't do it in the future. I mean, our ancestors probably sailed a lot farther than that on, their natural fibers. So I'm pretty sure we could do it also. We'll have to relearn and regain those skills. How do you repair a sail out of Lahala?
If I may I intervene a bit here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, when the Native Hawaiian Culture and Arts program started with this idea of building a voyaging canoe, it was so that you could bring back arts and crafts that were not practiced for a very, very long time. For instance, the original Lauhala sails that were given for the use for Hokulea back in '76, all of it came from Kapinga Marangi, which is a Polynesian outlier in Micronesia. Now, Kapinga Marangi, because they do it every day, they could whip out a sail in no time at all. But when it came to building Hawai'iloa, we could not utilize Kapinga Marangi Lauhala because it's not Hawaiian. So we had to find practitioners here who could do Lauhala to make the sail. And we found a Mrs. Nunes, for instance. And there were some, but we needed sails where the weave was a lot smaller than what they were used to doing. And I think they were able to only make one sail because they weren't used to making, I mean, we're talking about 250 square foot sails each or 350 square foot sails each when all they made was Lauhala mats and hats. When it came to lashing the canoe, the original plan was to grow olona, find a place to grow olona and make olona lashing along with coconut sennet. But olona was the preferred fiber to use for ropes because from what we understand, historically, when the whaling ships used to come in, and they all had, back in the old days, the whaling days, they had hemp lines. And so what they would do is they would switch out the hemp lines for olona. Olona, if I remember correctly, back in the day, when we were testing things with Ben Finney and such, that olona its tensile strength is equal to, if not better than Dacron. It's supposed to be the strongest fiber on earth, from what I understand. So the problem was back then is that nobody was growing it. There was no place, the places that had natural, where olona naturally grew, no longer did. They no longer did there. But since that time, since the proposal, see, because when Hawai'iloa, the proposal to build Hawai'iloa was all out of native materials. Okay? So the Hawai'iloa that we have now is not the canoe that was envisioned by the Native Hawaiian Cultural Arts Program. It's a different canoe. Okay, no, we have spruce hulls instead of coral hulls. We have Dacron lines instead of olona, et cetera, et cetera. So he goes down the lines. The idea now is 20 to 30, 3 decades, 3 decades later, there are now practitioners who can do the Lauhala, who can do kapa, who understand. There are people out there now raising olona. And so we talked to the museum. The museum hosted a party for the Friends of Hokulea and Hawai'iloa about a year plus ago. And so we started talking to Marcus Hanalei from Mission Museum. He's one of those that is starting to weave and put together olona in its small ways, and also coconut sennet. But now that there are people actually practicing and know how to do what no one knew how to do 3 decades ago when Hawai'iloa was being built, why don't we try to create the Hawai'iloa that was envisioned? So that's the purpose at this point. Going back to whether or not you would sail with all of that, I say we should. I mean, our ancestors got here, and they didn't have nylon, they didn't have Dacron sails, they didn't have all the stuff that we use. I think we need to go back to and find the vessel that our ancestors used. Now, I envision that the vision is for Hawai'iloa to use as many natural materials as possible. The only thing I would not switch out are the hulls. That was a gift from the Tlingit Haida people, and it is a part of our history. If if someday there are coal logs large enough to build a voyaging canoe, I'd say go for it. But understand, whoever's doing it, understand the great responsibility you have. We all know, ask John, ask Shorty, ask Nainoa, ask Ben, ask all you guys, right? We often get, with the board, we often get phone calls or questions asked of us like, what's it take to build a voyaging canoe? Everybody wants to build a voyaging canoe for a while there. I mean, there were a lot of people requesting, how do we do this? How do we do this? So the question is, how do we build, what's it take to build a voyaging canoe? How much does it cost? And my response is your life. If you're not going to give your life towards that canoe, don't build it. Otherwise, it's going to rot somewhere, rot on the beach. And we have examples of that.
Sure.
Throughout Polynesia. We have examples of that. In Cook Islands, canoes that I saw sail have rotted on the beach. So, and a canoe like Hawai'iloa, because of natural materials, is going to take more care than any other canoe that we have in Hawaii at this point. Just because of the materials it has. But I think we owe it to our ancestors to try and figure out how they did it, utilizing the materials that were available to them. That's why I think it's a good idea to pull it off. As far as Alaska, taking it to Alaska, the reason why we started talking about going to Alaska, and I'll share this. A couple of years ago, Nainoa asked myself, my daughter, Hanani, Lehua, Linda Ferruto, we went to Alaska for with Randy Fong and his wife Jamie. We went to Alaska for a conference called One Canoe. Basically, it was Native peoples from both sides of the Pacific getting together. And it was a great conference, and it was held. I mean, every presenter had to respond to the elders of that area in Juneau. And I think Nainoa was so taken with being back there and what was being presented in this exchange. That's when we first announced we're going to do a Pacific Rim voyage, and we want to start here in Alaska. So while we were there, we would go visit different peoples, and we were also invited at one time to the raising of a totem. This is in Juneau. This totem was coming up. And so during the period we were there was a lot of talk about hokulea. So at the raising of this totem, more talk was being, hokulea. And the girlfriend of the carver of the totem that we were raising said, isn't there another canoe? I said, yeah, there's Hawai'iloa. She goes, that one. And it dawned on us at that point that the people in Alaska don't know hokulea because it's never been there. The only voyaging canoe that's been to Alaska has been their own Hawai'iloa.
Yeah.
So from that point on, that's when we started thinking, well, if you're going to do the background, I think we should make Hawai'iloa as seaworthy as possible so that we can take it and be there for the beginning of the Pacific Rim voyage. I'm not saying do the whole voyage, but in speaking with Ben and all of you who've been working on the canoe, we take the canoe as far as the canoe can go when we finally ship it to it. If we can go from Juneau to Seattle, fine. We can make it down to San Francisco, fine. Get down to Long Beach, okay. San Diego, all right. Argentina. But we go as far as we think the canoe is capable of going relative to the condition that it's in when we send it to Alaska. Now, I've spoken to Nainoa about it, and Nainoa, we had a meeting, I think some of you were there, a Hanavaa meeting, where Timmy Gilliam spoke about taking Mo'okia to Tahiti. So he sort of broke the ice. And I said, so we'd like to take Hawai'iloa to Alaska. And Nainoa did it I know, I think he's very open to it. But since the passing of Byron, I think it's big on his mind to bring Hawai'iloa back to the three people that Joy mentioned earlier. Judson Brown, to honor Judson Brown, Ernie Hillman, and Byron Malat, those three. It'd be a wonderful way to start the Pacific Rim voyage. And then yesterday, I brought it up with the board of directors of the Bishop Museum. We have to get permission from the Bishop Museum. It is, after all, their canoe. So I brought it up to the board of directors and to the CEO, Melanie Ide. And I think Melanie's a go. Of course, the board of directors, the Ray Kong, who's their attorney, he was there. And he will be asking the hard questions that we're going to have to answer. So I think we can pull it off. We just have to keep that image in mind. You know, it's like Navigator, it's like Jerry Ongaias. Keep that picture in your mind, and let's work towards that picture. Okay?
Yeah. May I ask a question relative to that?
Sure.
So he's a beauty, huh? He was designed, like all of them were, for open ocean sailing. Mm-hmm. And crab claw rig and that whole deal. So you take him from there, and then you bring him up this inland waterway with the huge tidal differences, the currents, the blockage from all the islands, right? So the wind patterns must have been really different. What was it like to sail, bringing her up and down through the inner waterway versus open ocean?
Dennis, it's yours. Your go. I was on board Hokulea, so both Hawai'iloa and Hokulea, as Joy had mentioned, were shipped right after we had our welcoming ceremony at Kea Lagoon. Both vessels were put on the deck of the Pfeiffer, which is a big freighter, and shipped to Seattle. Both canoes were re-rigged, and eventually they sailed together all the way, sometimes sailed, sometimes towed, given the conditions up there. And it was at Vancouver that we parted company. So Hawai'iloa went north to Alaska, and then I stayed on Hoku, and we went south. So Dennis, Brad, they know about how the conditions up there with Hawai'iloa, so I would ask them to respond to that question.
Yeah, maybe I can add a little bit. Yeah, basically we ended up doing actually a lot of towing in the inland passage because just the winds weren't right in many places. Anytime that we got to a little bit more open waters, okay, we would put the sails up and sail. But I think the big challenge though was having to do a lot of, the research that the people know is how to, actually navigate those waters because of the tidal changes. Yep. And we really relied on their knowledge. They would tell us, okay, we have to leave at such and such a time so that we can make the right tide. But as far as the actual sailing and handling when we did, there really was not a lot of difference. Just that, again, the winds were a little trickier because, again, of the terrain that you're actually going through. There was just a little bit of a trickiness to that.
Did you have to use the hoy a lot more, Brad? Do you remember?
Yeah, actually we did. It was you had to be on the hoy the whole time. It wasn't like when you get the right winds where you can actually just track the canoe. You can just pull the sail, the hoy out of the water and let the canoe sail. We couldn't really do that because, again, of just the actual way that you had to kind of work your way through the winds.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we are at 11 o'clock. Does anyone have any other questions regarding Hawai'iloa? I know that we could probably cover a whole nother section of even just more like the structure, sailing Hawai'iloa, all those different things. So if you guys are open to that, we could possibly do that. And in preparing for this, I actually came across a lot of the zip files and records that we were given. Uncle Billy, I don't know if you remember all the zip files from years ago that you sent. So it's pretty cool. I actually found a lot of the measurements that compare it with Hokulea, that compare like Hokulea, that compare the original design and then the revised design with all the measurements. So it's pretty cool. So I'm going to be sending that information to you, Ben. So yeah, I mean, looks like we're, we've got a lot of work to do, but we're so thankful to have all of you that are committed. If any of you here on the call are also interested in participating with Hawai'iloa, feel free to shoot me an email. And we can add you to our list if you're not already on it. We understand it's challenging because, a lot of us, we all, malama all the same va'a, we're all lohana va'a or whatnot. But definitely there will be a time where if we want to get closer to this vision that we're all holding, that we're definitely going to need some people to step up and try to make some time also for Hawai'iloa when you can. So again, if anyone wants to be added to the actual friends list, please shoot me an email. I'm on the email that Michael sends out. So it's just jocelynjoyanchetta@icloud.com. Just for those of you that aren't familiar, I'm the coordinator as well as one of the board members as well. And yeah, I just thank you so much for listening to our stories. Mahalo, Uncle Billy and Uncle Brad, for sharing all of your stories with us. We really appreciate it. But yeah, I'm hoping that we could do another section more about sailing the canoe and becoming more familiar, because everyone is so used to Hiki ana Lia and Hokulea. So maybe, Ben, if we want to, maybe we could collab on that. I can make your PowerPoint for you if you want to do something, so we could get this crew a little bit more intimate with the actual like structure and the setup, past, present, future plans or whatnot. So maybe that could be something in the future. But yeah, thank you everyone. And again,
Hey,
Uncle Billy, Uncle Brad, thanks for letting us young guys, take care of the canoe. It's a big honor for us. And I hope that you all see that a lot of us just love the canoe and want to malama the canoe, regardless of whether we sail it. I mean, don't get me wrong, we really want to sail too, but again, we thank each and every one of you, for everything that you guys do, because the canoe would not be moving at all, would not be living or breathing without any of you. And so we know the sacrifices that you all make without having this time to actually sail your va'a. So thank you. We really appreciate it.
Itching to start dry dock.
All right, very last thing before we all say goodbye and happy Saturday. It sounds like we have at least one more session we could do on Hawai'iloa, and then we have a whole session or maybe a series on the stories of John Cruz. Yeah, exactly. I think that'll be wonderful. Somebody has to help him with photos. But anyway, that all sounds great. I think we have a great path forward. If you have any other ideas that you'd like to have us share here, as dry dock heats up, we may have to, sort of close down Saturdays because everybody's going to be out sanding. But until that happens, we'll continue here. Anything else? Final prayers. Would anybody like to say a closing prayer to end the session?
I'll do it.
Thank you, Billy.
This is a prayer that we, the Hanawā leadership, started doing, found it. It's called the Prayer of Sir Francis Drake. And it goes this way. Disturb us, Lord, when we are too well pleased with ourselves, when our dreams have come true because we have dreamed too little, when we have arrived safely because we sailed too close to the shore. Disturb us, Lord, when with the abundance of things we possess, we have lost our thirst for the waters of life. Having fallen in love with life, we have ceased to dream of eternity, and in our efforts to build a new earth, we have allowed our vision of the new heaven to dim. Disturb us, Lord, to dare more boldly, to venture on wider seas where storms will show your mastery. We're losing sight of land, we shall find the stars. We ask you to push back the horizons of our hope and to push into the future in strength, courage, hope, and love. Amen.
Amen to that.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, everybody, for all your stories.
Amen.
Thanks, Mike, for running the
Mahalo,
show, Bo.
everyone.
All right. Aloha, everybody.
Aloha.
Aloha. Stay
Aloha.
safe, everyone.
Aloha, everyone.